Hey there, fellow public servants.
Oh, hey.
We all know how much buzz there is around AI these days, and for good reason.
Yeah.
It's changing how we work and how we serve Canadians. So today we're diving into something really practical and important,
Mm,
accessible and equitable AI systems.
that's right. We're going to unpack a draft standard from Accessibility Standards Canada, ASC 6.2, which focuses specifically on AI systems.
Think of this deep dive as your cheat sheet.
Oh, okay.
To understanding this complex document, we'll break it down into key takeaways, making it easier for you to apply these principles in your day-to-day work. And the best part,
Okay.
this standard is actually under public review until May 5th, 2025. So you can have a say in shaping the future of AI in Canada. More on that later.
Right.
But let's start with the basics.
Okay, sounds good.
So maybe a great place to start is with Accessibility Standards Canada themselves.
Yeah. Yeah.
I know they were created under the Accessible Canada Act.
They were, and their mission is pretty ambitious to create a Canada without barriers.
No small feat. But what I find inspiring is their commitment to ensuring everyone benefits from accessibility, not just people with disabilities.
Absolutely. And they operate on some pretty solid principles.
Yeah.
Dignity, equal opportunity, full participation, meaningful choices, design that includes disability considerations, and perhaps most importantly,
Yeah.
direct involvement of people with disabilities.
That nothing without us approach is so powerful.
Mm.
They walk the talk, making sure their standards development process is accessible too.
Oh, for sure.
I know they even offer their materials in plain language in various formats.
It's about making sure everyone can engage in the conversation, regardless of their abilities or how familiar they are with the technical jargon.
Now let's get to the heart of the matter. AI. It has incredible potential to improve our lives. But if it's not designed and used thoughtfully, it can actually create new barriers, especially for people with disabilities.
You've hit the nail on the head, and think about it. If you have a visual impairment and a government service moves entirely online with an interface that isn't accessible, that's a huge barrier to accessing essential services.
Or imagine an AI-powered system for job applications that unintentionally screens out candidates with certain disabilities. That's not just unfair. It's a missed opportunity for everyone.
Precisely. And that's why the standard is so crucial. It provides a framework for harnessing the power of AI for good while minimizing potential harms.
The preface of the standard lays out 4 key points that really resonated with me. First, AI should offer comparable benefits to everyone, including people with disabilities.
Second, AI shouldn't create greater harm for anyone, particularly those with disabilities.
Third, using AI should never lead to someone losing their rights or freedoms.
And finally, interactions with AI should always respect people's agency and dignity.
These are such important guiding principles, and the document itself is structured around them. It covers accessible AI, equitable AI, the organizational processes to make it all happen, and even AI education.
That's right. It's a comprehensive look at how to make AI work for everyone.
Okay, let's dive into accessible AI. What struck me was the emphasis on participation.
Yes, it's moving beyond simply accommodating people with disabilities after the fact. The standard calls for their involvement in every single stage of the AI lifecycle, from design and development to testing and implementation.
So we're talking about having people with disabilities at the table, sharing their lived experiences, and providing input that can make a real difference in how AI systems are built and used.
Absolutely. For example, think about designing a chatbot for accessing government services involving people with visual impairments could lead to incorporating screen reader compatibility and alternative text descriptions from the very beginning. Their input ensures the chatbot is usable for a wider range of people.
That makes so much sense. And the standard doesn't stop at just involving people with disabilities in the design process.
Yeah.
It also lays out specific requirements for accessibility, for instance. All the tools used to create, deploy, and manage AI systems must be accessible to people with disabilities.
And not just accessible in some vague way, but meeting specific technical requirements like the CANAS EN 301-549-2024 Accessibility Standard. This standard lays out detailed criteria for making sure things like websites, software, and documents are usable by people with a wide range of disabilities.
So we're talking about things like keyboard navigation, screen reader, compatibility, adjustable font sizes, and captions for videos. These features might seem small, but they can make a huge difference in someone's ability to use an AI system effectively.
Absolutely. And remember, we're talking about the entire AI ecosystem, not just the back-end tools, but also the outputs generated by AI systems like reports, recommendations, or even automated decisions.
Right, and that's not all. Even the documentation explaining how the AI works needs to be accessible. What good is transparency if people can't access the information?
Exactly. And this focus on accessibility extends to feedback mechanisms as well. People with disabilities need to be able to easily share their experiences and suggestions for improvement.
I'm starting to see how this standard is really about weaving accessibility into every single aspect of AI. It's not an afterthought. It's a fundamental consideration.
It really is. And while we focused on the how of accessible AI, there's another equally important dimension to consider: equity. That's where things get really
And
interesting.
all ears, let's dig into equitable AI.
Okay. Okay, so equitable AI.
All right, let's shift gears and talk about equitable AI. What exactly does that mean in the context of this standard?
It means going beyond simply making AI systems usable for people with disabilities.
Okay.
It's about ensuring fairness in the outcomes those systems produce. We need to make sure AI doesn't create or worsen existing inequalities.
So it's not enough to make sure someone with a disability can use the system. We also need to make sure the system is treating them fairly.
Exactly. Imagine an AI system used to determine eligibility for a government benefit.
Yeah,
Even if it's accessible to everyone, if the underlying algorithms are biased against certain groups, it could unfairly deny benefits to people with disabilities. That's where equitable AI comes in.
that's a great example. The standard lays out 4 key principles for equitable AI. Can you walk us through them?
Of course, first, people with disabilities should benefit from AI at least as much as others. It's about ensuring equal access to the potential benefits of AI.
That makes sense. What's the second principle?
The second is that people with disabilities should not experience greater harm from AI than others. This is about mitigating the potential risks and negative impacts of AI, ensuring those risks aren't disproportionately borne by people with disabilities.
That seems particularly relevant in areas like healthcare or law enforcement, where AI systems are being used to make high-stakes decisions.
Absolutely. The third principle is that using AI should not result in a loss of rights or freedoms for people with disabilities. AI should be used to empower people, not restrict their autonomy or limit their opportunities.
So we need to be very careful about how AI is used, especially when it comes to sensitive personal information and decisions that could impact someone's life choices.
Exactly. And the fourth principle is that all interactions with AI should respect the agency and dignity of people with disabilities. This is about ensuring AI systems treat people with respect, recognizing their individual needs and preferences.
These 4 principles paint a really clear picture of what equitable AI should look like. But I imagine putting them into practice can be quite challenging. What does the standard suggest we do to actually achieve equitable AI?
The standard offers some very practical recommendations. For instance, it stresses that AI systems should be designed with accessibility and equity in mind from the very beginning. It's far more effective and often less costly to incorporate these considerations up front rather than trying to retrofit them later.
So we're talking about baking in accessibility and equity as core design principles, not just as add-ons or afterthoughts.
Exactly. Another crucial point is ensuring that the training data used to develop these AI systems fairly represents people with disabilities. If the data itself is biased, the AI system will inherit those biases, leading to unfair and inaccurate outcomes.
I remember we talked earlier about how AI accommodations can be ineffective if the training data is lacking. It sounds like the quality and representativeness of the data are really key to achieving equitable AI.
You're absolutely right. And it's not just about avoiding bias, it's also about ensuring the data reflects the full diversity of needs and experiences within the disability community. We need to be mindful of intersectionality, recognizing that people with disabilities are not a monolithic group.
That's an important point. It's about making sure we're not just representing one type of disability or assuming everyone within a particular disability group has the same needs and experiences.
Precisely. The standard also recommends validating AI systems to ensure they perform equally well for people with disabilities. We can't just assume they'll work for everyone without rigorous testing and evaluation.
So it's about including people with disabilities in the testing process and making sure the systems meet their needs in real-world scenarios.
Exactly, and this is where ongoing monitoring becomes crucial. The standard encourages organizations to continuously track the impact of AI decisions on people with disabilities and use that information to make improvements. It's about creating a feedback loop to identify and address any unintended consequences or disparities.
This all makes a lot of sense, but let's be realistic. Even with the best intentions, things can go wrong. What happens when AI systems do cause harm, especially to people with disabilities?
That's a crucial question, and the standard acknowledges that potential for harm. It emphasizes the need for robust risk assessment, specifically prioritizing potential harms to people with disabilities, especially those who might be more vulnerable due to intersectional factors.
So it's about anticipating potential harms and taking proactive steps to mitigate them with a particular focus on those who might be most impacted.
Precisely. And the standard goes a step further, requiring organizations to consider the potential harms to people with disabilities when evaluating the accuracy of AI systems. It's not just about overall accuracy, it's about making sure the system is accurate for everyone, including people with diverse needs and experiences.
That's a really important distinction. It's not enough for an AI system to be accurate in general if it's systematically making errors or producing unfair outcomes for certain groups.
You've got it. The standard also calls for organizations to develop clear plans for protecting people with disabilities from things like data breaches or malicious attacks. This is about proactive cybersecurity measures that recognize the potential vulnerabilities of people with disabilities.
Data breaches are a huge concern these days, and we need to make sure people with disabilities aren't disproportionately harmed if their personal information is compromised.
Absolutely. Another key area addressed in the standard is preventing AI systems from perpetuating harmful stereotypes or spreading misinformation about people with disabilities.
That's a big one. We've seen how AI can amplify existing biases and prejudices if it's not carefully designed and monitored.
Exactly, and we need to be particularly vigilant about preventing AI from being used for discriminatory profiling or surveillance of people with disabilities. It's about ensuring AI is used ethically and responsibly, respecting the rights and dignity of everyone.
That's such an important point. It's not just about the technical aspects of AI, it's also about the ethical implications.
Absolutely, and the standard even goes a step further, highlighting the need to consider cumulative harms, even from decisions that might seem relatively minor on their own.
Can you give us an example of what that might look like in practice?
Certainly, let's say an AI system is used to allocate resources for a particular service, even if the system only slightly disadvantages people with disabilities in each individual decision over time. Those small disadvantages can accumulate and lead to significant disparities in access to those resources. It's about recognizing that seemingly small biases can have a compounding effect.
That's a powerful reminder that we need to be thinking about the long-term impacts of AI decisions, not just the immediate outcomes.
Exactly. So far, we've been focusing on the principles of accessible and equitable AI, but the standard doesn't stop there. It also provides specific guidance on the organizational processes needed to actually implement these principles effectively.
This is getting really practical.
Hmm.
I'm eager to hear what the standards suggest. Let's dig into those organizational processes.
Okay, well, the standard lays out a roadmap for putting these principles into action, and it starts with inclusive governance. We need to make sure people with disabilities are actively involved in decision-making processes around AI.
It's about going beyond just consulting with disability groups and actually giving them real decision-making power.
Exactly. It's about embedding that nothing without us principle into the very fabric of how we govern AI in the public sector. The standard also emphasizes the importance of careful planning and justification when it comes to using AI.
That makes sense. We need to be thinking about the potential impact of AI on people with disabilities from the very beginning, not just as an afterthought.
Absolutely, and we need to be transparent about our plans. The standard calls for publicly disclosing plans to use AI systems and making those disclosures accessible to everyone, including disability organizations.
Transparency is key. It builds trust and allows for greater accountability.
Right. The standard also gets into the nitty-gritty of data, highlighting the need to assess whether the data we're using to train AI systems is appropriate, and you guessed it, involving people with disabilities in that evaluation.
We've talked a lot about how biased data can lead to biased outcomes, so this step seems critical.
It is, and of course, the standard addresses the actual design, development, procurement, and customization of AI systems, emphasizing that all of these processes must prioritize accessibility and equity.
It's about weaving those principles into every stage of the AI lifecycle, making sure they're not just box-checking exercises.
Precisely. And to make sure it's not just lip service, the standard recommends ongoing impact assessments, ethics oversight, and continuous monitoring of potential harms. It even suggests maintaining a public registry of harms and inequities related to AI systems.
That's a powerful accountability mechanism. It shows a real commitment to transparency and learning from mistakes.
And let's not forget about training. The standard stresses the need to train all personnel involved in AI on these principles, ensuring the training is relevant to their specific roles and responsibilities.
So no one gets a free pass.
Yeah.
Everyone needs to be equipped to apply these principles in their day-to-day work.
Exactly. The standard also talks about transparency when it comes to interacting with AI systems. People need to be informed about how AI is being used and how it might impact them, and there should be clear consent mechanisms in place.
That's important, especially in the public sector, where we're dealing with sensitive information and decisions that can have a big impact on people's lives.
Absolutely. And the standard encourages organizations to provide alternative approaches to AI-driven decisions, like having human decision makers or oversight mechanisms. It's not about blindly trusting AI. It's about having checks and balances.
That makes sense. We need to remember that AI is a tool, and like any tool, it can be used for good or bad. It's up to us to use it responsibly.
Exactly. And when things do go wrong, there need to be clear processes for addressing feedback incidents and complaints about AI systems with options for appeal. People need to have recourse if they feel they've been treated unfairly.
It's about making sure people have a voice and that their concerns are taken seriously.
The standard also covers data security and privacy, recognizing the importance of safeguarding personal information, especially when it comes to people with disabilities.
Data security is paramount. We can't be using AI to improve people's lives if it comes at the cost of their privacy or puts them at risk.
Absolutely. And finally, the standard emphasizes the need for accessible AI education. Everyone involved in AI, from developers to policymakers to end users, needs to be educated on these principles and how to apply them.
So it's about building a culture of accessible and equitable AI across the public sector.
That's right. And this education should empower people with disabilities to take on a variety of roles in the AI lifecycle, not just as users, but as designers, developers, testers, and policymakers.
I love that it's about creating a truly inclusive AI ecosystem where everyone has the opportunity to contribute.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground today, from the high-level principles of accessible and equitable AI to the very practical steps public service organizations can take to put those principles into action.
This has been such an insightful, deep dive. It's clear that Accessibility Standards Canada has put a lot of thought into this standard, and it has the potential to make a real difference in the lives of Canadians.
It does, but the real work begins. Now it's up to each of us to take these principles and apply them in our own work, no matter what our role is in the public service.
Absolutely. And remember, this draft standard is open for public review until May 5th, 2025. This is your chance to have a say in shaping the future of AI in Canada. Head over to the Accessibility Standards Canada website and share your thoughts. Let's work together to create a future where AI truly benefits everyone.
As we wrap up, I'm left thinking about the incredible potential of AI to create a more inclusive and equitable society, but also the potential pitfalls if we're not careful. It's up to all of us to make sure AI is used as a force for good, and this standard is a powerful tool to help us do just that.
Thanks for joining us on this Deep Dive, listeners. Until next time, stay curious and stay informed.